Make sure that there's an athletic trainer for your son or daughter's sports scene. I write a newspaper column here in Charleston, South Carolina, and one of my recent columns I wrote about a recent death of a high school football player. Now, the high school, I'm not going to get into all those details, but it sounds like they did all the right things. I think they had an athletic trainer. People started CPR. The coaches helped out with emergent response. They called an ambulance. I think everything, it sounds like at least, was done correctly. But I wrote a newspaper column not to talk so much about that. I just used that as an introduction. But I talked about emergency action plans, and I talked about what we need to do as high schools within, in my case, the state of South Carolina, to be prepared for emergency events, be it cardiac events, be it heat stroke, and any number of things. And there's a lot of things, that the high schools generally in South Carolina aren't doing that are suggested to be done by some of the medical bodies and medical organizations nationally. And that was the point of my column. Well, a couple days later, I got an email from an athletic director at a local school, a smaller school in the Charleston area, and he told me that he was terrified that such an event could happen at his school. You want to know why? Not just because that's not tragic anyway, but because his school doesn't have an athletic trainer. So yes, you could teach the coaches on proper steps to take if a kid drops down on the field and you don't have an athletic trainer there. The coaches can get started. Somebody could pick up the phone and call EMS, but he was really worried that could happen at his school and there'd be nobody that's qualified to help. I'm Dr. David Geyer, orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine specialist, and I provide education and commentary on all sorts of sports and exercise injuries and injury treatments and injury prevention for athletes and active people so that you can stay healthy and perform your best. And the reason I tell you that tragic story and the fears of that athletic director is that one of the things that I think is so important, I address this in my newspaper column, and it's what he gets to, it's basically athletic trainers are critically important in sports. Yes, at the high school level, which is where we see them, and on TV we see them with the professional sports, but throughout sports, at games and at practices and traveling with the teams to tournaments, athletic directors, or athletic trainers I should say, are really, really important. Now, in case you're not familiar with athletic trainers, let me start by clearing up a common misconception. These are not personal trainers or strength and conditioning trainers. Yeah, a whole lot of athletic trainers have strength and conditioning degrees, things like CSCS and NASC. I forget all the different initials for the various certifications for strength and conditioning trainers. But yeah, a lot of them have that. But no, these are qualified healthcare professionals. They have studied for years and done rotations and training of working with athletes and active people. Yes, you see them in professional sports, you see them at the college level, and hopefully you see them at the high school level, but we need them throughout sports. And surprisingly, they're not as present as we would like. There was a study back in 2009 that only 42% of high schools in the United States had access to athletic trainers. More recently, I think it was 2015, that number had risen to about 70%, but most of those 70% were actually sort of part-time people provided by sports medicine programs. I think it was about a third of the high schools in the United States actually employed an athletic trainer, but still 70% at least had access to one, so that's better, but there's still schools like the athletic director that reached out to me that don't have athletic trainers, and it is so important that they're there. Obviously, they're there for the emergent events. They are qualified and trained to be first responders to injuries and illnesses, medical conditions that are emergency. Not just, head injuries and cervical spine, neck injuries that are emergencies, but yes, people that drop from heat stroke and cardiac deaths, sickle cell events, things like that. They are qualified to evaluate, treat, and act rapidly. I think they are critical. Yes, you can call EMS, but you may wait 15 or 20 minutes, and a lot of times it's going to be too late. You want an athletic trainer there. But it's not even just emergencies. It's developing emergency action plans, for your venue venue with the personnel that you have, the coaches and the athletic directors, and yes, the athletic trainers, the student athletic trainers, maybe the paramedics, the team physicians, creating a plan so everybody knows what to do, where everything is. But they monitor field conditions and weather conditions and proper environment, making sure it's not too hot out there so that you're not increasing your risk for heat conditions. They check equipment. They get the athletes ready for practices. They may do taping and various other things to get people ready. Yes, they're involved in evaluating and helping to treat injuries. They help work with the team doctors and other healthcare professionals to determine return to play. They check athletes for concussions, make sure that they don't have a concussion and that they don't return to play too quickly. There's so many things they do, and that's just scratching the surface, quite honestly. But there's so many reasons that they're important, and very often they're the only ones there that are qualified to serve those roles. Yeah, at games there may be team physicians there at the high school level, but they're not there in practices, and often they're just there for football. Very rare that orthopedic surgeons cover high school basketball, high school soccer, baseball, cheerleading events, things like that. You need athletic trainers there, not just for games, but for practices and being in the training rooms and being available. Plus, it's not just injuries, it's all those other things we talked about. If you are a parent, I'd start by going to your son or daughter's school, find out, talk to the athletic director, find out if they have an athletic trainer. And if not, what can you do to increase that? I would argue that if your school plays contact or collision sports, football, lacrosse, rugby, soccer, any of those types of sports, you shouldn't be able to play. I know this isn't a rule, even though maybe it should be. You shouldn't be able to play without an athletic director or without an athletic trainer. I keep doing that. So you've got to find money to come up with paying an athletic trainer. Hold bake sales and fundraisers. It doesn't really matter. Find ways. I think if you threaten to shut down football because you don't have an athletic trainer, that money would magically appear. Just my personal opinion, but talk to the athletic director at your school about what you can do to get an athletic trainer. Maybe you partner with a local sports medicine program at a hospital and they basically donate the services of an athletic trainer in exchange for sort of a relationship where maybe you send a lot of the kids that do get hurt, to that program for evaluation and treatment. There's lots of ways to do it. Maybe you can figure out a way where the school can hire one and then that athletic trainer teaches a class or two. There's lots of ways to do it, but we need basically athletic trainers at schools. It'd be even better if we could have them at middle schools and at youth sporting events where they're very, very rarely there, but I would argue still just as important. Okay, does your school where your son or your daughter play sports, do they have an athletic trainer? What ideas have you seen to get athletic trainers hired in schools? If you're an athletic trainer yourself, what would you suggest to schools, to teams about getting you guys hired? How can we get more athletic trainers? And what other things do you do that help athletes? I'd love to hear it, whether you work as an athletic trainer or you're a parent or school coach, athletic director that wants them. I would love to hear your experiences, your thoughts. So below this video, share your thoughts, your experiences about athletic trainers. I would love to read it, and I bet parents, coaches all over the country, maybe all over the world, would love to hear what you have to say as well. If you like videos like this, any kind of videos, information, education, commentary on sports and exercise, injuries and injury treatments and injury prevention, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Click the subscribe button in the upper right part of this page. You'll get videos a couple times a week on ways to stay healthy and perform your best delivered directly to you. If you know people who are working to be athletic director or athletic trainers, I promise I'll stop doing that. If they're working to be athletic trainers, or they are now, or you have friends whose kids play high school sports or youth sports, and you think that, hey, maybe they need to hear this, please share this video. This is an important message, and we need to get the message out there, so please share this video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you right here next time.